They say a child's plea can silence even the loudest engines. But when a girl with ocean blue eyes walked into the Devil's Hawks clubhouse and whispered, "Can you be my dad?" 50 bikers stood without hesitation. What followed didn't just shake a town, it rebuilt one. Before we start the story, tell us, where in the world are you watching this from? And if you enjoy our stories, please consider subscribing to our channel. It'll help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers and keep sharing more inspiring content with you. The Devil's Hawks weren't saints, but they weren't villains either. Their clubhouse sat at the edge of Dry Creek, Nevada, where desert wind tangled with gasoline and loyalty. It was a Saturday afternoon, sun bleeding through open garage doors as men tuned engines, traded jokes, and cleaned chrome. Then the laughter died. The door creaked open, revealing a girl no older than 9, blonde hair tangled, knees scraped, clutching a torn backpack. Her blue eyes were swollen from crying. "Is Robert here?" she asked, voice trembling. The men exchanged glances. Robert Ridge Kellen, their chapter president, stepped forward, broad, grey-bearded tattoos crawling up his forearms. "That's me," he said softly. "You lost, sweetheart." She shook her head, hugging her backpack tighter. "No, sir. I found you." Ridge knelt, trying to meet her eyes. "What's your name?" "Sophie," she whispered. "Sophie Allen. And what brings you here, Sophie Allen?" Her lip quivered. "I need a dad. Just for a day." The air went still, the rumble of nearby engines fading like the world was holding its breath. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then Tank, the biggest man in the room, set down his wrench slowly. "Kid, where's your folks?" Sophie looked at the oil-stained floor. "Mom's home. She said not to come here, but she's sad all the time." Ridge frowned. "What about your dad?" She hesitated. "He's in heaven. The boys at school say that means I don't really have one." Ridge's jaw tightened. "Who told you that?" "My teacher said we're doing family day next week. We have to bring our dad to talk about their job." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I don't got one." "But you," she pointed at Ridge's vest, "you look like Dad's are scared of you." Laughter rippled softly through the room, not mockery, but something gentler, protective. Ridge felt his throat tighten. "You came all this way alone?" Sophie nodded. "Walked from Meadow Hill. Mama was sleeping. I didn't want her to know." Ridge looked at the long stretch of road outside, 8 miles of desert heat. He swallowed hard. "Well," he said quietly, "guess we got ourselves a job." They sat her down at the clubhouse bar and handed her a chocolate milkshake someone found in the back fridge. Sophie's feet swung above the floor, shoes untied. "You really want us to come to school?" Ridge asked. She nodded eagerly. "My friend Becky said her dad's a pilot. He's bringing pictures. Maybe you could bring your motorcycles. Everyone likes bikes." The men grinned. "Kid's got taste," Tank muttered. But behind the humor, Ridge's mind turned. He'd seen that look before, not in kids, but in men broken by war or regret. That hollow hope that someone might show up for them. "When's family day?" he asked. "Friday morning?" "All right," Ridge said, leaning back. "We'll be there," Sophie gasped. "You mean it?" "Every word." He looked at his brothers. "Don't we?" One by one, heads nodded. They weren't a gentle bunch, but every man in that room knew what it felt like to need someone and find no one there. Sophie smiled for the first time that day. Small, but enough to fill the room. When Sophie left that afternoon, escorted home on the back of Ridge's Harley, the town noticed. People stared. A weathered biker and a little girl with a pink backpack riding through Dry Creek like it was the most natural thing in the world. Outside her trailer, her mother burst through the door, eyes wide. "Sophie, where have you—" She froze at the sight of Ridge. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, removing his helmet. "Name's Ridge. Your girl came to find me." Sophie's mother, Hannah Allen, looked like she hadn't slept in days. dark circles, hair pulled back, hospital scrubs still on. She didn't bother you, did she? Ridge shook his head. She's brave. You raised her right. Hannah exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. She doesn't understand. Her dad died 3 years ago. Military. Ridge nodded quietly. We'll take care of her Friday, promise. Hannah blinked, confused. Take care? Career day. We're her crew. For the first time in a long while, Hannah laughed, small, exhausted, but real. 50 bikers at an elementary school? That's gonna make headlines, Ridge smiled. Good. Maybe the right kind for once. Friday arrived crisp and cloudless. The elementary school's parking lot buzzed with SUVs, minivans, and curious glances. At 9:20 a.m., a faint rumble began. Teachers froze mid-sentence. Kids pressed faces to windows. The ground vibrated as 50 Harley-Davidsons rolled in, chrome flashing under the Nevada sun. Ridge led the pack, Sophie's pink backpack strapped to his handlebars like a badge of honor. Engines cut off in perfect sync, leaving stunned silence. Then one voice broke it. "That's my dad!" Sophie shouted, running toward them. The playground erupted. Parents whispered. Some smiled, others frowned. The principal's clipboard trembled in her hands. Ridge crouched as Sophie barreled into his arms. "Told you we'd come, kiddo. You brought all of them," she squealed. "Every last one," he said, looking at his crew lined up like a wall of steel and loyalty. Behind the windows, a few boys who'd teased her stared wide-eyed. Sophie turned, chin high, as if the whole desert bowed behind her. Pemberley Day had just changed forever. Inside Dry Creek Elementary, fluorescent lights flickered above a crowd that had no idea what was about to walk in. Parents held coffee cups, kids fidgeted, and the teacher, Mrs. Decker, adjusted her glasses nervously. "All right, next presenter, Sophie Allen." The door opened. 50 men in leather vests filled the hallway behind her. Boots echoed like drumbeats of a forgotten war. Ridge stepped forward first, tattoos gleaming under the school lights, a bouquet of sunflowers in his hand. "For the teacher," he said politely, handing them to Mrs. Decker. She blinked. "Oh, my!" The classroom went silent as Ridge motioned to Sophie. "This is our girl. We're here to talk about what we do." Sophie grinned, her voice steady. "My dad's fix engines and help people who need it." Ridge smiled faintly. "That's about right." One biker, Diesel, pulled out a miniature Harley engine, setting it on the table. "This is what makes the heart of a bike beat," he said. The kids leaned forward, eyes wide. Fear had turned to fascination, and Sophie, she looked like she'd just grown wings. While Diesel explained torque and throttle, Ridge stood at the back, scanning faces. The adults were mixed, half amused, half judgmental, but the children were spellbound. When the presentation ended, Sophie's class burst into applause. "Wait," she said suddenly, tugging Ridge's sleeve. "Can I tell them something?" Ridge nodded. Sophie stepped to the front, clutching her backpack strap. "My dad's in heaven," she said quietly. "He was a soldier. When he died, I thought I didn't have anyone anymore. But I do now. Lots of them." She turned, gesturing to the bikers. "They came because they care. You don't have to be born family to be family." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then from the back row, a boy in a button-up shirt, one of the ones who used to tease her, whispered, "I'm sorry, Sophie." Mrs. Decker's voice wavered. "That was beautiful." Ridge swallowed hard, his chest tightening. Around him, 50 hardened men looked down at their boots, each of them remembering a time when no one showed up for them. But today they had. After class, the bikers lined up outside as students poured into the hallways. Kids swarmed the motorcycles, their laughter echoing through the courtyard. Ridge lifted Sophie onto his Harley's seat, letting her grip the handlebars. She grinned so wide it hurt to look at. Hannah arrived minutes later, breathless from her shift, stopping short at the sight. "Oh, my God," she whispered. Sophie waved. "Mom, I told you they'd come." Hannah pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling before she could stop them. Ridge approached her quietly. "She's something special," he said. "You both are." Hannah exhaled. "You don't even know us." "Don't have to," Ridge replied. "Good people deserve backup." Behind them, Diesel laughed as 3 kids tried to honk his bike's horn. The school principal stepped outside, cautious but smiling. "I'll admit this isn't the usual family day crowd," she said, "but I've never seen this much joy on campus." Ridge tipped his head respectfully. "Sometimes the loudest folks bring the quietest peace." The principal nodded. "You proved that today." The next morning, Ridge was back at the clubhouse when a local reporter showed up, notebook in hand. "Heard about what happened at the school," she said. "Mind telling me why 50 bikers crashed career day?" Ridge leaned against the bar, smirking. "We didn't crash it, Ma'am. We were invited." "By who?" "A girl who thought she didn't have a dad." The reporter's expression softened. "That's quite the story." "It's her story," Ridge said firmly, "not ours." But by afternoon the town was buzzing. Photos of Sophie surrounded by leather vests flooded social media. The headline read, "50 bikers show up to be one girl's dad." Messages poured in, teachers from other towns, veterans' wives, even foster parents thanking them for reminding the world what loyalty looks like. Ridge stared at the screen, half proud, half uneasy. Attention wasn't what they'd wanted, but if it meant Sophie never felt alone again, it was worth it. That night, Hannah texted him one sentence. "You gave my daughter back her smile." Ridge read it twice before replying, "She gave it to us." 2 days later, Ridge got a call that froze his blood. Hannah's voice was shaking. "He's back." "Who?" Ridge asked sharply. "Sophie's uncle, Earl. He wants her. Says he's her guardian now that her dad's gone." Ridge's tone hardened. "You tell him not to come near her." "He's already here," Hannah whispered. "Outside." Ridge was already grabbing his keys. The roar of engines soon broke through Dry Creek again as the Hawks rode in, dust and thunder chasing them. They pulled up to Hannah's trailer to find Earl, a thin man with a beer belly and mean eyes, yelling on the porch. "You can't keep her from me," he shouted. Hannah clutched Sophie behind her. Ridge dismounted, stepping between them. "That your niece?" "Yeah, blood's blood," Earl sneered. "You're drunk," Ridge said calmly. "You come near her again and you'll regret it." Earl scoffed, stepping closer. "You think your gang scares me?" Ridge stared him down. "We don't scare people. We protect them." The rest of the Hawks formed a silent wall behind him. For the first time, Earl stepped back. Earl's truck finally peeled off into the dust, but Ridge didn't move until the sound was gone. Hannah clutched Sophie's hand, shaking. "He can't take her, right?" she whispered. Ridge turned to her. "Not if we have anything to say about it." He called Diesel over. "Run a check on him." Within an hour, Diesel returned with bad news. DUI charges, unpaid child support, restraining orders in 2 states. He's no guardian. Ridge's jaw set. "Then we'll make sure the court knows that." Hannah sank onto the porch step, exhausted. "I can't afford lawyers, Ridge. He's family. People believe blood over truth." Ridge crouched beside her. "Then we'll give them proof." He handed her his card. "One of our brothers, Cade, used to be a paralegal before he rode with us. He'll help you file the papers." Sophie peeked from behind the door, her blue eyes wide. "Are you going to be my dad again?" Ridge smiled softly. "Every time you need me, kiddo." She beamed. For a man who'd spent most of his life running from the word family, it suddenly felt like home. The following week, Dry Creek's small courthouse became the scene of something no one had seen before. 50 bikes lined the street in perfect formation, chrome gleaming under the sun. Locals gathered, whispering as the Hells Angels stood shoulder to shoulder outside the building, silent as stone. Inside, Hannah and Sophie sat at the wooden table, papers stacked before them. Earl swaggered in with a smirk, muttering, "Guess you brought an army." Hannah didn't look up. She didn't have to. The sound of engines idling outside said everything. The judge entered, startled by the sight through the window. "Ma'am," he said, clearing his throat, "you have quite the support." Hannah's lawyer, Cade, wearing a pressed shirt under his cut, rose. "Yes, Your Honor, these men are here for moral support only. But I can assure you, my client isn't alone anymore." Earl's smirk faltered. Testimony followed, school teachers, nurses, neighbors, all confirming Hannah's stability and Earl's record. By the end of it, the judge didn't hesitate. "Full custody remains with Ms. Allen. Visitation denied." Outside, the Hawks cheered, the sound rolling through the valley like triumph. That night, Ridge sat on the steps of the clubhouse, a cold beer sweating in his hand. The others celebrated inside, laughter spilling out into the desert air. Sophie was asleep on a couch in the corner, clutching a stuffed bear someone had won her at a carnival. Hannah approached quietly, her voice soft. "She wanted to thank you before bed." Ridge smiled faintly. "She doesn't owe me anything." "You didn't just protect her," Hannah said. "You showed her what good men look like." Ridge looked away. "Maybe I was just making up for the times I wasn't one." "You're being one now," she said, sitting beside him. The moonlight caught her face, worn but strong. "You've done more for us in a month than anyone has in years." Ridge shrugged. "That's what family does." Hannah's eyes shimmered. "Then maybe we finally found ours." Inside, the men raised their glasses to the quiet outside, the kind of silence that comes after doing something right. Ridge looked at the horizon and thought, maybe redemption wasn't something you prayed for. Maybe you earned it, one kid at a time. Months passed. Life in Dry Creek shifted. Sophie had become a local legend, the little girl with blue eyes who rode with the Hells Angels. The school hung her drawing in the hallway. 50 motorcycles around a tiny house with the words, "My family protects me." Ridge visited often, dropping by her school with lunches or tuning her mother's old car. He didn't talk much about it, but everyone noticed how his rough edges softened around them. One afternoon, as he waited by his bike, Sophie ran up, waving a flyer. "Career day again," she said. "Can you come?" Ridge chuckled. "Didn't we already steal the show once?" "Please," she begged, grinning. "The teacher said everyone wants you back." Ridge pretended to think, then handed her his sunglasses. "Only if you're my manager." She nodded seriously. "Deal." That evening, the Hawks gathered again, planning not just to show up, but to build something bigger. Diesel leaned forward. "What if we make it more than one school?" Ridge grinned. "A program. For kids like her." "Exactly," Ridge said. "Let's give every kid a family who rides." By spring, the program had a name, Chrome Hearts Youth Ride. The mission was simple. Teach local kids mechanics, responsibility, and the kind of brotherhood the world forgot. Every weekend, the clubhouse filled with laughter instead of just engine noise. Sophie wore a mini denim vest with a custom patch, Lil Hawk. Ridge had it made himself. Hannah volunteered as coordinator, balancing her hospital shifts with the new purpose that gave her strength. Local news caught wind of it again, this time calling it a biker-led revival of family values. Ridge didn't care about headlines. What mattered was seeing kids who used to flinch at loud voices now laughing under the same roof. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Ridge?" she asked. "What happens when I grow up?" He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You'll ride your own bike, sweetheart. And when some other kid needs help, you'll stop for them too." She grinned. "Then I'll be just like you." Ridge's throat tightened. "Nah," he said softly. "You'll be better." A year later, Dry Creek wasn't the same town anymore. The Chrome Hearts Youth Ride had spread to 3 neighboring counties. Kids from rough homes or no homes at all came every Saturday to learn engines, kindness, and courage. Local shops started donating parts. The sheriff's office even cleared a stretch of old highway for their weekly rides. What began as one child's desperate plea had turned into a movement. Ridge watched it all from the garage doorway, cigarette unlit between his fingers. "You ever think we'd end up being role models?" Diesel teased, wiping grease off his hands. Ridge chuckled. "World's gone mad if we are." But deep down he knew better. Every time he saw Sophie laughing with the other kids, every time a fatherless boy found a mentor in one of his brothers, something inside him healed a little more. That night, as the sun sank red over the desert, Ridge finally lit that cigarette, looked toward the horizon and whispered, "Guess we found what we were riding for." Trouble came, as it always does when good things start growing. A local councilman, backed by wealthy donors, pushed to shut the program down. "Bikers teaching kids? It's dangerous," he sneered on live TV. "They're criminals pretending to be saints." The words hit the town like a storm. Sponsors pulled out, reporters swarmed, and whispers spread. Sophie overheard kids at school mocking her again. "Your dads are gangsters." She came home in tears. Ridge found her sitting on the clubhouse steps, head buried in her knees. "They're saying bad stuff about you," she sniffed. Ridge crouched down. "You know what truth sounds like?" She looked up, puzzled. He tapped her chest gently. "It sounds like this. It don't need a microphone." The next morning the Hawks rode into town, not to fight, but to serve. They repaired a veteran's roof, delivered food to single mothers, and fixed a playground for free. Cameras rolled, and for once they didn't mind. When a reporter asked Ridge why, he just said, "Because we don't prove ourselves with words. We do it with work." By the end of that week, the councilman's campaign against them backfired. Videos of the bikers helping the community went viral. People from across the country donated to keep the youth program alive. Schools invited them to speak. Ridge stood before one auditorium full of parents, his gravel voice steady. "Most of us grew up rough. Some of us were those kids. We ain't here to preach. We're here to show 'em that being tough and being kind ain't opposites. They're the same damn thing." The crowd erupted in applause. That night, Hannah found him sitting alone behind the clubhouse, staring at the stars. "You always slip away when people start clapping," she teased. Ridge smirked. "Never liked being the center of things." "Well, you better get used to it," she said. "You're the reason half these kids still believe in good men." Ridge exhaled slowly, glancing at the open road stretching into darkness. "Nah," he murmured. "The reason's a little girl who walked in here and asked 50 devils to act like angels." When Sophie turned 10, the Hawks surprised her with a new patch ceremony. The entire chapter gathered at the old racetrack they'd converted into a community field. A banner hung between 2 Harleys. Lil Hawk, the heart that started it all. Ridge lifted her onto the seat of a small, restored dirt bike painted sky blue to match her eyes. She gasped, speechless. "It's yours," Ridge said. "You earned it." Sophie ran her hand along the chrome, whispering, "It's beautiful." Hannah stood nearby, tears glistening. Diesel called out, "Speech." Sophie giggled, standing on the seat. "I just wanted to say thank you for being my dads." The men cheered, laughter and tears mingling under the setting sun. Ridge watched her with quiet awe. She had no idea how much she'd changed them all. Around them, the engines began to roar again, not in chaos, but in unity. The sound rose like a hymn across Dry Creek. Every echo carried one message, that love can ride louder than fear. And family isn't who you're born to, it's who shows up. Years later, Dry Creek would still talk about the girl with the blue eyes who walked into a biker bar and changed everything. Sophie grew up, took over the Chrome Hearts youth ride, and turned it into a national foundation. Ridge grew older, slower, but every Sunday morning he still rode out to the same hill overlooking town. That's where Sophie found him one morning, hair silver under his helmet. She parked beside him, silence between them comfortable and full. "You proud of me, old man?" she asked. Ridge smiled, proud. "Hell, you made angels out of sinners." Sophie reached into her jacket and handed him a small leather patch, the same one she wore now. "Family never dies." Ridge stared at it, eyes glassy. "You really outdid us, kiddo." "You showed me how," she whispered. They sat there, engines quiet, wind brushing through the grass like a prayer. Because sometimes the greatest stories don't end. They keep riding down open highways, in hearts that learned how to love loud. If Sophie's story moved you, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell. Because sometimes the heroes we need don't wear wings. They wear leather, grease, and scars. And every once in a while they remind us you don't have to be blood to be family.